would find him some easy completions to just settle him in. I would expect some of those movements and or screens, and then ramp it up, challenge him, see what he can handle. Hopefully the defense will give him some different looks. And to Lindsay's point, if something doesn't go ideal, how does he handle it? He handled it flawlessly in college, for sure, but this is the NFL, and it's a different experience.
Yeah, the operation is the word I was thinking of as well, Dan. It's almost like what Fernando Mendoza is learning is not an NFL offense, it's an NFL language.
Sure.
The reason why Kirk Cousins is going to start week one and until, at least according to the Raiders, maybe the entire season, but until proven otherwise, is because Kirk Cousins speaks this offensive language fluently already. He knows the ins and outs. He can get the team lined up, and everything that you need to do prior to the snap, Kirk Cousins can do at a high level. I think a lot of the stuff after the snap, Fernando Mendoza will, in short time, be able to do at a higher level than Kirk Cousins. But just getting in and out of the huddle, I know it sounds rudimentary. It's the #1 overall pick. You guys are talking about getting out of the huddle and getting guys lined up correctly.
Yeah.
We are.
Don't take it for granted, right?
Yeah, it's that big of an adjustment. And in college football, other than the service academies, no one really operates from under center that much. But Indiana was on the extreme in terms of infrequency of going under center. So it is an adjustment, and Fernando Mendoza offers a ton of upside. But before we tap into that, we got to get the fundamentals squared away.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how he handles all of it. I mean, O-line issues, a big part of the struggles last season. They've made some key additions there, Tyler Linderbaum, right, in free agency. But what are you looking out of that group to see tonight?
Yeah, I'm almost as keen on watching the starting offensive line as I am on seeing Mendoza, because honestly, this could be what swings his entire season. And you hit it, Laura. They were dismal last year, particularly in run blocking. Ashton Genty, for those who have forgotten, was an absolute hell. Ranked 49 of 49 running backs qualified in yards before contact per carry. And what we know about Clint Kubiak, certainly off of his time in Seattle, is he wants to run the ball. That under center wide zone run game was the foundation of the Seattle offense. And he wants to run the ball at a really high clip, particularly on early downs as well. So I'm going to be looking to see if they've improved, particularly in that zone blocking game. Are they working together as a unit? Heil Linderbaum was obviously their biggest signing at center. You get Colton Miller back at left tackle, who missed most of the season. But the right side is largely the same. So you really need to see some improvement from that part of the offensive line, frankly, before you feel comfortable about Mendoza even being back there based on what we saw last year.
Yeah, I mean, great points, especially about Ashton Genty, but key, too, to see how this O-line communicates with each other and with Mendoza. There's a lot to be excited about for tonight. But, Dan, no Carson Beck. So we saw how well he played last week. We were all excited to see him again tonight. How much could these missed reps impact him? Or you think they can kind of just look at what he did in the Hall of Fame game and live with that? Doesn't seem serious. We should point out the rib injury.
I do think missing the game is a huge miss for him, though, opportunity-wise. I'm in the camp that coming off of what he did in the Hall of Fame game, if he had done it again, it was going to become a very real conversation in Arizona. Just by the way it looked, the young man did not look stressed at all. He saw it cleanly. The ball went to the right place at the right time in the right location. You do that again, and you, in your building, start to have a conversation of, we love Jacoby Brissett. We're a very young football team. Let's see what we got in this young man. So I do think him missing this game and trying to build off of that Week 1 performance is a loss for him. It's not going to be the end of the world for the long run. He's more than likely going to play at some point this season, but I thought he could have been the opening day starter. I don't think he can be while missing this preseason game.
Okay, significant. They now look to Jacoby Brissett. You mentioned Gardner Minshew is a quarterback on this team, as well as Keaton Slovis tonight. None of those guys signed beyond 2026. So to Dan's point about the future, Carson Beck could be key. Let's go to Kansas City, where Patrick Mahomes will not play in the Chiefs' preseason opener against the Rams. That's expected, right? Andy Reid telling reporters today, though, that he won't play. No huge surprise there. The Chiefs erring on the side of caution. The real goal, having him ready for Week 1 of the regular season. That is Monday Night Football against the Broncos. Now, a lot of history came to an end for the Chiefs last year. 10 straight playoff appearances, 10 straight 10-win seasons, 9 straight AFC West titles, and 7 straight conference championship games. A streak matched only by Brady and Belichick in New England. All that came to a stop because they weren't what they have been used to being after last season. Dan, the Chiefs have a lot of young talent now that they're counting on, right? How important is it for those players to make an early impact early on in the season? They're going to need them right away.
5 of them.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's going to be another contender to rely on rookie snaps more than the Chiefs. If the Chiefs are going to contend in that division, truly, and then get into, I think they need meaningful snaps from at least 5 of those rookies. Obviously, the first-round picks, Mansour, Delane, Peter Woods, are Mason Thomas because they need somebody opposite the edge of Chris Jones to be a pass rusher.
Yeah.
Kennedy because we're looking for a nickel again.
Yeah.
And Cyrus Allen at wide receiver, to me, is a very big deal because there's a little bit of question marks at the wide receiver spot of, okay, how healthy? What's Rashee Rice? Is he going to be on the field? Obviously, Xavier Worthy, a speed guy. So I don't know the last time I remember a real bona fide contender that we pointed to and said, you guys are going to need so much positive impact because this is what usually happens. When you get rookies playing a ton of snaps, you're not a playoff team outside of the New England Patriots. Yeah. And so that's going to be a huge challenge in foreign territory for Patrick Mahomes and these Chiefs.
Yeah, especially on defense for me. So Peter Woods and R. Mason Thomas in particular, I am interested in watching. I don't think Woods is going to play. He had an ankle injury. Sounds like R. Mason Thomas will. But it was very obvious in the draft when they focused on those two players that Brett Veach recognized they needed more juice up front. Last season, Chris Jones was the only Chief who ranked inside the top 50 in pressure rate. George Karlaftis was injured some of the season, but that's been a need for him, especially as he ages and maybe they can't count on him to play every snap. They do need reinforcements there and haven't really been able to find them. And those two players, and Field knows this so well, of course, as a draft analyst, both of them I thought were incredibly explosive off the line of scrimmage. Yep. Woods, some finishing issues maybe. Thomas, didn't have the perfect size profile, which is why they were both available to them. But both of them have tremendous athleticism, tremendous get-off, and I think those are qualities that the Chiefs clearly prioritized in the draft because they've been lacking them on the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I mean, one of the, silver linings of a bad season like the Chiefs had last year is you can do a better job of sort of self-scouting where you're actually vulnerable. The Chiefs not nearly athletic enough up front. I think a lot of people are assuming that because Mansour Delane was not only the 6th pick overall, but because the Chiefs traded up to get him, that he's just going to solve one half of the cornerback equation that was created when both of their starters went to the Los Angeles Rams. We haven't seen a ton of Mansour Delane so far in training camp. He's been banged up with this shoulder injury that impacted him during the pre-draft process. So are there high hopes for him? Of course. Could he become an excellent player? Absolutely. But even Steve Spagnuolo their defensive coordinator, has at times noted, we just haven't gotten much time on the field with him.
That's a problem.
For a guy picking up Spags' scheme, every rep does matter during the preseason, not just game reps, but also practice reps. So we'll see just how far along he is compared to what I think the expectation was when he got drafted 6th overall.
Yeah, you think about what they're trying to replace in the secondary. The Chiefs allowed the 4th fewest touchdowns last season. That's with Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson on the roster, and those guys are gone. So we're just getting started on NFL Live. So much to get to today. We have football tonight. Preseason is here. The Packers face the Steelers this evening. We've got a lot from Pittsburgh on if Aaron Rodgers will play, what to watch from Jordan Love as well. That's right after the break. Plus, after an impressive season last year, can Trevor Lawrence finally put together back-to-back strong seasons? Someone here thinks the Jags have one of the AF. Time now for Rookie Watch. Week 1 of preseason kicking off tonight. Look at you, Field. You got your binoculars out, ready to go. Safari.
Once you get into animation, that means you're big time.
You are.
I finally made it.
Here's our first look at the rookie class. And Field, who should we have our eyes on? You guys have been injured, but some of these guys that are healthy, who should we be looking out for?
Yeah, let's start with Caleb Downs down in Dallas. He goes to the Cowboys at number 11 overall. Laura kind of slides relative to where I had him ranked on the overall big board. It's because of the position that he plays safety, but unsurprisingly, he has made a huge mark on the Cowboys right away. It sounds like he is a leader on the defense, a communicator, and of course his hard-hitting style is going to show up. It's pretty rare for a safety to set the tone for a defense, but Caleb Downs has that within him. He did it at both Alabama and Ohio State. Arvell Reese, another Ohio State guy. Man, it feels like these Ohio State guys are all over the place. At the Giants, number 5 overall. The question is exactly how the Giants are going to utilize Arvell Reese, stand-up inside linebacker who also has serious upside as a pass rusher. If I'm the Giants, my thought process in drafting him was, we'll figure it out. There are guys that look the part, and then there are guys like Arvell Reese, who is unmistakable with his physique. His physicality is going to show up for a team that feels like it can be a whole lot better in a hurry. Another Ohio State Buckeye. It's a theme here. Carnell Tate, who I think actually became underappreciated during the pre-draft process. Doing some homework on the Ohio State guys that are going to be in the 2027 NFL draft. You go back and you realize Carnell Tate, professional, great route runner, great hands, vertical threat. Cam Ward has to be very happy to have Carnell Tate as his new wide receiver one. The offensive line gives me question marks in Tennessee, but otherwise I do have confidence that this offense is set for a huge step forward. The second wide receiver taken in the draft, Jordan Tyson. He's banged up right now, which is obviously not ideal, but it sounds like he has been the star of Saints training camp. Question mark on him, not talent, incredibly explosive. Given the football, good things can happen. It's just about staying available on the field. He missed 5 games last season, but it does feel like this is the kind of player that opposite Chris Olave could take this offense to a new level. And they played some great ball down the stretch last season. Denzel Boston, more wide receiver play here. He, of course, went 39th overall to the Browns. The second wide receiver they took, Laura, after Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M. Denzel Boston has been excellent so far in training camp for the Browns. He's big, but he also has the ability to play inside as sort of a big slot. He's got the route running ability, the understanding of coverages, and has very reliable hands as well. The Browns have a lot of questions on offense, specifically who's going to be their week 1 starting quarterback, but it does sound like they have already found themselves a keeper in Denzel Boston.
Yeah, there's a priority there for sure in the draft. And reminder, a bunch of games here. Preseason games, I get it, but they're over the next couple nights. It's going to be fun to see these rookies show out. Now, you mentioned Jordan Tyson, this new on NFL Live. Concerning news coming out of New Orleans. Their Saints rookie, Jordan Tyson, leaving practice today with a leg lower body injury. As far as the severity of the injury, head coach Kellen Moore says they're going to get more information, probably have a better idea tomorrow. So keeping an eye on that for sure, and you just hope he's okay. Field mentioned some of that injury history for him. Let's stay in New Orleans, where the Saints hosted the Jags for a joint practice. A lot of back and forth between Travis Hunter and Chris Olave. I'm sitting in field seat. Sorry, Phil.
That's okay.
All right, let's continue. No, it's not. That's yours. Tyler Shuck hoping to make a leap year 2, right? And Trevor Lawrence ready to build off of last season's success. So let's dial in on the Jags a little bit. You talk about flipping the script for Trevor Lawrence. Look how he and the Jags turned their season around last year. Winners of their final 8 games. Lawrence threw nearly twice as many pass touchdowns, including 9 go-ahead, which led the NFL over the last 8 weeks. It was the Jags' longest win streak since 1999. Mina, what do you think was the recipe behind Lawrence's success last season?
Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, there were a few things that went into it. I mean, the second half of the season, this was a top 5 passing attack in football, and I think it can continue. A few things that happened. The trade for Jacoby Myers opened up the middle of the field. Before the trade, the Jags were 27th in EPA per play, throwing between the numbers. Afterwards, they were 3rd. It also allowed the other receivers to slot into more natural roles. The Jags cut down on pre-snap penalties, which was a huge issue for them, as well as drops. And then finally, Trevor just started pushing the ball downfield. He was extremely aggressive, attacking, throwing even to tight windows in a way that he wasn't at the beginning of the season. All of that can stay. What needs to get better is, while the passing game took off, the run game fell off a cliff at the same time. And I think you saw that in the postseason when everyone was begging them to run the ball in Buffalo, and they wouldn't at the rate that they really, frankly, should have been able to. So that's what I mean watching the Jags early in this season. Is that run game improved from what we saw last year? Because if the run game catches up to the pass game, this is a top offense in football.
Trevor Lawrence has never really put together 2 big-time seasons back-to-back in the NFL. I think a couple things. One, this receiving group is, I think, outside of Cincinnati and New England, probably about as talented as anybody in the AFC. Brian Thomas Jr. was great his rookie year. He was okay. The disconnect showed last year, but okay. Obviously, Jacoby Myers was great. I think Parker Washington has the chance to become one of the, if not the best, number 3s in the NFL. Potentially a number 2. I think he's that talented of a player. I know Mina's high on him as well. The interesting thing apart for me in the pass game, MK, with this offense is I do think Liam Cohen took some by surprise last year.
Right.
There's a little bit of like shock when you get into the game.
Now
have
they adjusted?
What's going to be his adjustment, his self-scouting? What are his counter punches to continue to take this offense to the next level and to keep Trevor's confidence high? I thought that was a big deal last year. Trevor just decided, I can throw better than or as good as anybody in football, and I'll trust the play call. Will that carry over?
Yeah, Mina, Parker Washington, who Dan's mentioning, we know that you're high on. What do you think about what he's saying there about maybe being one of the top number 3s in all of football?
Well, I think Dan makes a really excellent point about like Liam Cohen, what's next, right, for this offense. And I think, Dan, I know we're broken records on this, we're going to see way more multiple tight end sets. I think it was very deliberate by them to draft a blocking tight end, Nate Berkshire, I think I'm saying his name right, earlier than people expected. Brenton Strange, for those who've forgotten, was hurt in the middle of the season, and in the beginning of the year looked incredible, and was also he's a complete tight end. So between them, you have two guys who you can put in line. They're going to get a lot of base defense, and I think that will be sort of the twist maybe on the offense this year that'll allow them to continue evolving. Even though, as you said, they have a great 1-2-3 receiver, they'll have the personnel flexibility to attack defenses in different ways.
Yeah, that's the wrinkle of the offense, and I will continue to hit this, the drops. I mean, Trevor Lawrence and the offense were good last year. I think they led the NFL in drops, them and the Packers being 1-2. And then if this offense becomes a little bit more complex, Mina and I are going to get into this as the season goes on. Offensive penalties in the NFL, we overlook this sometimes.
Yeah.
They will be huge this season. They weren't 5 or 6 years ago because teams could just chuck it all over the field and you can make up for that. You aren't good enough up front versus these defensive lines nowadays. So if they can continue to cut back on the penalties, continue to cut back on the drops, this is going to be a very, very good offense.
That's an interesting trend to follow, just like how clean can the operation be to gain advantage.
5 years ago, it wasn't that important, which is shocking to say because it was such an RPO game. It was such a space game. That's gone away. And because of the efficiency of offenses, you're chasing efficiency and explosiveness. If you get an early down penalty, you're done with these defensive lines.
I love the trends and how cyclical it can be in the NFL. Okay, more on that throughout the season as they're telling you. We've got more coming your way today on NFL Live. Still to come, Joe Burrow and the Bengals, they're starters. They're playing tonight. What will it take for Cincinnati to get back to peak offensive performance? Dan says it could come down to just one change in their operation. He's going to tell you about that next. And we'll talk about these guys suiting up tonight. We had little conversations around this. Some people are mad, some people are happy. We'll dive into it next on the show.
Great.
Can't wait.
Mina goes.
Welcome back to NFL Live. Look at this. Fernando Mendoza, #1 overall pick, arriving for his first preseason game. Raiders-Cardinals tonight at 8 on the ESPN app. The smile is a mile wide. You love to see it. Hey, maybe Fernando can get on this list next year. Speaking quarterbacks, our very own Dan Orlovsky releasing an article today on ESPN.com ranking NFL quarterbacks by trait. So those 7 traits are arm strength and decision-making, which were headlined by Josh Allen. Meanwhile, Matthew Stafford topped the list for both ball placement and mechanics. Pocket presence, where Drake May was Dan's top quarterback, and second reaction ability and rushing ability. So those are all the categories, and then Dan's ranking them. We're going to zero in on this one trait because there's so many traits we could dial into, but we wanted to really focus on ball placement. So who were the quarterbacks, Dan, that were the top ones here going into evaluating this trait and why?
#1, ball placement and accuracy are different. We've talked about this. Accuracy, throwing the ball to your guy. Ball placement, throwing it away from the defender. And that was what's separating. I would tell you ball placement, or the ability of, is the #1 physical trait that the great quarterbacks have. Being able to throw the ball exactly where they want. 10 through 6, Dak Prescott 10. He's become a mainstay on a lot of these rankings. Brock Purdy, I think, just because of the feather that he could put on a ball, still place it. Lamar Jackson, one of the very best in the league in doing it. Josh Allen. And then Jordan Love might surprise some people being at 6, but I think his ball placement and the ask of those throws is a big deal. So let's go through 5. Go to 5 through 1. Okay, #5, Jared Goff. I'm a believer that Jared Goff is one of the best and purest throwers of the football in the NFL. He's also in an offense that he's asked to make a lot of different throws, the variance of throws. It's not a lot of dink and dunk. It's a challenging, over-defender, layering of a football, pinpoint type of ball placement that is needed. Jared Goff at #4. Joe Burrow, for me, was at #4, and that might be surprising because
Thought he'd be higher.
He has been. Joe Burrow has been #1 in this category for the past 2 seasons. This is in part because he wasn't on the field as much as we want him. I still think he's probably just as good at it, but part of it is because other guys shined so much in this department, you want to get him in there, okay? But Joe Burrow's still great at it. #3, Sam Darnold. We saw this in that playoff run. You don't go through that playoff run and win the Super Bowl and not turn the ball over unless you're excelling in this. Part of it is the connection with JSN and the confidence and the trust that he has in it. But we all know this guy made some outstanding throws, and he was one of the, if not the best down the field throwers in the NFL last year, and partly because he became or made it such an emphasis. Number 2, guy who was number 2 in the MVP ranking, Drake May. I would emphasize again, this was a big ask from an offense last year. He's also doing it without receivers that we pound the pavement and say these guys are stars.
Dan, it feels like for me, when you look at the other guys here in your top 5 and we see this one down there, he's the only one that didn't have this great receiving core.
One of those bona fide guys, for sure. Good group, and Steph obviously was great for them last year, but without a bona fide guy, and he was asked to throw the ball downfield a ton last year, which we talked about. Matthew Stafford, number 1. I think he's one of the most gifted throwers in the history of the NFL. I think you can have a conversation that no one made more big-time, wow, difficult throws in the NFL last year. There's a reason why he threw for 46 touchdowns. A lot of them were down in that red zone area where the placement of the throw was really the mandate for the success, and he did it, and many times in an easy fashion. Those are the top 10, but those are the guys that last year, but also the expectation of the ones that would thrive this year.
Remember last year when Devontae Adams led the NFL in receiving touchdowns, and I believe his average length of receiving touchdown was like 2.5 yards?
Yeah.
The reason why is because most teams would say, a 1-yard slant or fade is a low percentage play relative to a run because the quarterback's got to put the ball in the perfect spot. Matthew Stafford excels there. Then also, I know that the screen game and the yak is a big part of their offense. That is also predicated upon the quarterback putting the ball exactly where it needs to be for usually the receiver to get yards after the catch. I remember Kurt Warner used to be it was kind of one of the hallmark traits that took him from grocery store employee to a Hall of Famer. And I always think about him when you're describing not throwing the football to where your guy is, but away from the defender's bar.
Yeah.
Stafford was number 1 in this ball placement category and mechanics.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
He's a beast.
And I would tell you, I think that's the reason why he still is playing at such a high level. I was with Matthew when he was younger, when he was that gunslinger, sidearm guy all the time. I don't know. I haven't been around a guy that took the emphasis to improve himself mechanically that was as talented as he was. A lot of guys that are that talented, they don't have to because they can get away with it. He's ridiculously talented, but he's also made the emphasis, I want to become a technician in many ways.
All right, Dan, we like your list here. I will say there's people online that don't like him, so congrats on making people mad today. You love doing that. Mina earlier is like, Dan, why you always got to be trending on Twitter? What's going on?
My response was,
what?
I didn't even know that was happening. So.
It is. Okay, coming up next, Kyler Murray bringing a different style to Minnesota. So what will this mean for Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings offense? Mina says things could look different from anything from him. That's coming your way next on NFL Live. We'll be right back. One of the games involves the Raiders. Look at Max Crosby. He's ready to go, just arriving at the stadium. Jacoby Brissett certainly hoping he doesn't see Crosby out there tonight, right? Look at that. Welcome to fabulous Las Vegas.
What a dog.
How about the fact that there was a time briefly where Max Crosby would not be arriving for the Raiders, but I get it. That's old news. Okay, let's continue on here in case you missed it. Here's Jameis Winston on how he described the Giants' offensive coaching staff. Take a listen.
All of them are doing different things, and they're kind of like it's, I hate, but just listening to Drew Brees' Hall of Fame speech, I can compare it to gumbo. There's just so many good mixes in there. You got the old school, you got the new school, and you got just this melting pot of greatness, right? So it's really fun. It's really fun.
I mean, that's different. Gumbo.
Not
Have you ever had gumbo? I know you have not.
I think I've tasted it. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not a gumbo guy. No.
Okay. Well,
that
would not shock anyone.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well,
Not
gumbo's
surprised.
great. And you know why you're not a gumbo guy? Because it's got flavor. Okay.
Guess
The
what? I
Vikings-
have been eating sushi.
Come on.
What?
Yeah, into it.
How much time?
Like a California
Let's do
roll?
it.
or
No, I
like-
had spicy tuna.
Whoa,
Yeah.
Dan.
Welcome
Dan.
to living,
okay.
Dan. This
New
is
man.
awesome.
Dan's out here living a little.
I'm into it.
I don't even
I'm
know
into
who
it.
you are anymore,
I
Dan.
am into it.
All right, Dan's tried sushi. We're going to get into that later. But how about
Oh,
this?
that
The
Sonny's
Vikings
got it.
quarterback competition has a winner. Minnesota named Kyler Murray the starting quarterback yesterday over 2024 first-round pick J.J. McCarthy. Head coach Kevin O'Connell saying the potential he saw from Murray stood out, led to the decision. Not necessarily a surprise, right? But they did do it a little earlier than you might have thought, so it must have been pretty obvious. Murray coming off a career low 5 games last year. Kevin O'Connell hoping for far more than that. In his 5 seasons as Vikings head coach, only 3 quarterbacks made 10 starts in a season. It worked wonders with Cousins and Darnold, but McCarthy was up and down between injuries and inconsistent play, right? When you think about just how all of that went. So, Dan, how much pressure is on the Vikings and Kyler Murray to get this right?
There's a ton. I think it's the easiest place to play quarterback in the NFC outside of the Los Angeles Rams. You're going to have a top 10 offensive line. You'll have a top 10 run game. I think you have one of the most skilled pass-catching groups in the NFL. If we think of the 3 receivers they have and add in T.J. Hawkinson, you'll have a top 5 defense. You just can't be bad. Yeah. We've watched Kyler play at a very high level for stretches in this league. If the Vikings get that version of Kyler, there's no question they're going to contend to win this division. I think it's one thing for each party in this grouping, Kevin O'Connell and Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, you're not a playmaker in this offense. Okay, we just need you to hit the open guy. If I'm Kevin O'Connell, I'll get him open. And if you're Kevin O'Connell, I think the big challenge is, can he build in passing lanes in their play-action pass game for Kyler's vision? That's going to be, can we stretch this offensive line a little bit horizontally in the play-action game to create some of those really high-end throwing lanes that Sean Payton used to do for Drew Brees, and that passing game with that play-action game over the middle with those crossers are easier to see for Kyler because he's always struggled to do that.
You know what's going to make Kevin O'Connell's life a lot easier? I think this is going to be one of the best run games in football. Dan, you talked about it being top 10. Last year, right, they were 9th in success rate with running back carries, despite the fact they didn't face many light boxes for obvious reasons. So that's your baseline. Now you add Frank Smith, coming from Miami, one of the sneaky under-the-radar hires of the offseason, a dynamic run game that you remember, Dan, primarily out of the pistol and the gun, that didn't have a dual-threat quarterback and was still incredibly explosive. Now you add one of the more explosive dual-threat quarterbacks in football who has the option to carry the ball, and in my mind, that is going to be incredibly additive. Also, they have one of the better blocking tight ends in the NFL, Josh Oliver. They drafted a fullback, Ben Bredeson. They added a wide receiver, Juwan Jennings, who's a hell of a blocker. There are the ingredients here, I think, for a very good ground game. So if the pass game takes a second, and I wouldn't be surprised if it does, I really think this Vikings run game can lift the offense in the meantime.
Love all those points. I will say I hope they don't do the pistol shotgun run game stuff that much because it's not who they are, and I obviously don't believe in it.
Really?
Okay. Wait, Mina, go ahead.
No, I think that the Packers, Dan, though, are a good example of a team that's found the way to integrate those two worlds. But it is difficult. It's something to monitor. You're right. It is not who they've been.
Yeah.
Okay, I love this. It's just getting me excited for the season. Phil, J.J. McCarthy did speak yesterday about how he wants to stay in Minnesota. Do you think he still has a future as a starter somewhere, though?
I think he does, and I think this is going to be, and he may not feel this way right now, potentially the most influential season of J.J. McCarthy's career. And he might not play a snap, right?
Yeah.
But there's a chance, or there's a world in which Kyler plays as well as we have said he could potentially play, and he has this team in playoff contention. It's kind of a fork-in-the-road year for J.J. McCarthy, right? There's a lot you can learn when you're not playing. Sure. It's going to be a challenge. How are you preparing each and every week? Because two things. If something happens to Kyler health-wise, you're right back as the starter. On top of that, if Kyler doesn't perform well, his leash is going to be shorter than other starting quarterbacks around the NFL. And so there was enough optimism surrounding J.J. McCarthy coming into the draft that he was, if it wasn't Minnesota, somebody else was taking him somewhere in the first half of the first round, right? Yeah. There would be suitors for J.J. McCarthy in time. This is a huge year for him to find a way to learn in a way that he hasn't been asked to learn, probably at any level of his career. The backup based on ability, not because of age or anything else.
Yeah, if it happens, it'll be his one and final shot in Minnesota. Be ready for it if it comes.
No doubt.
Yeah, he can control that, right? He can be as prepared as possible. All right, thanks so much for tuning in to NFL Live with us today. We got like the all-star cast here on a random Thursday, but we'll see you tomorrow and enjoy the football tonight. Are on the field.
My name is Aaron Donald. We're here in Los Angeles at the Rams facility. Here today with AD99 Foundation, working with these young kids. I'm supporting to be here because, obviously me, being who I was as a football player, to be able to give these kids some knowledge that I got, that I learned, and pour this into the kids, to the next generation, to the youth. I think that's everything, right? Because kids just see the end goal. They don't see what goes in behind closed door, the body of work you put in, the sacrifices you make. So instilling that to these kids early, letting them know about that, I think that's important.
As an ambassador for ESPN's Take Back Sports initiative, Aaron Donald and Andrew Whitworth hosted a free O-line and D-line camp for kids in Los Angeles. So cool to see. Aaron Donald committed to empowering youth, fostering growth, opportunity, and success. He believes in teaching them skills through athletics that kids can use throughout their lives. This makes a huge, awesome difference. I love to see it. All right, how about this? We got real football tonight. It's preseason, but it's real. Packers at Steelers. Matt LaFleur arriving just moments ago. Dan, why are you giving me that face? Whatever. He's arriving. He's ready to coach a preseason game. And there's Aaron Rodgers arriving. We aren't sure if we're going to see him suit up tonight. Here's what he had to say about playing. See the smile there? Looks like he might be ready for something. Here's what he said.
Oh, it's preseason. It's not real football. So if I do, great. If not, great. I think those are a waste of a day, and I think preseason football is good to see guys with the pads on, under the lights, how they react to the nerves, but it's not real regular season football. So there's no advantage for you? I don't think so.
Oh, wait, I stand corrected because I obviously do not know as much as Aaron Rodgers knows. So if he says it's not real football, it must not be real football. We're now joined by Steelers reporter Brooke Pryor. The timing on that was impeccable. Brooke, fill us in on everything we need to know tonight.
Thanks, Laura. If we see Aaron Rodgers tonight, and that is a big if, it would only be for 1 to 2 series. Coach Mike McCarthy said that he plans to play his quarterbacks in 3 groups. The starter going 1 to 2 series. The next group will finish out the first half, and the last group will play the entire second half. McCarthy, though, said that Aaron Rodgers really wants to play in the preseason. But when we talked to Aaron Rodgers later that day, he said that he doesn't really see the benefit to playing in the preseason, and that if he plays, great. If he doesn't, great. So a little bit of a mystery still in Pittsburgh about whether or not Rodgers will be on the field. One interesting thing to note, though, when Rodgers last played with Mike McCarthy in the preseason, he was in Green Bay, and they played the Pittsburgh Steelers. Rodgers played 1 series and threw a touchdown pass in that one. Now, what is not a mystery is that Jordan Love will start on the other side. At least that's what Matt LaFleur said earlier this week, that barring him changing his mind, Love will play. And that's especially notable because even though Love has started the preseason opener in each of the 3 seasons that he's been the starter, a year ago is when he tore the ligament in his non-throwing thumb, caused him to have surgery and miss a little bit of time. But he is planning to play tonight. Won't look like he does in the regular season, but he will be out on the field.
Thanks to Brooke. Jordan Love's going to be out there leading the offense, as you just heard Brooke saying, but Micah Parsons won't be out there to anchor the defense. How will the Packers navigate starting the season without him, you think?
Yeah, I think the story of the first month and change of the Packers season is, can this defense survive? And, some of that will be young players like a Baron Sora. What does he do in the preseason? Can he step up? But for me, I really think it comes down to Jonathan Gannon. This is the greatest test of his career. He can't lean on that 4-man rush the way he did in Philadelphia. He has to find ways to generate pressure in unconventional fashion. Whether that's Edgerrin Cooper, who's a fantastic blitzer as a linebacker, or bringing the nickel, Javon Bullard. He is going to have to really go deep into his bag of tricks while Parsons is gone, because without Micah, this is not a very strong pass rush in Green Bay.
Yeah, the Packers allowed 3 times as many pass touchdowns per interception when Parsons was off the field last year. His impact, no doubt, is significant. We got even more football tonight, baby. Let's get to it. Lions versus Bengals at 7 Eastern on NFL Plus. Here's what's cool. The Bengals are expected to have Joe Burrow and star receivers Jamar Chase and T. Higgins playing. Now, who knows how long they're going to play, but they're going to be out there. Jamar Chase said a few days ago Burrow's been a little less forgiving in his leadership style during camp. They're actually calling him Mean Joe, and Jamar loves it. So, Phil, do you like the decision by the Bengals to play a good number of their starters?
We call him Mean
Dan.
We're not on TV. People don't
He's always
that,
Mean Dan,
true
though.
Right now, that's true.
I'm the nicest person you guys know.
Okay, that could be true.
You are the nicest
no,
person.
No, you're my guy, Dana. We love you.
That was way too nice. I can't stand either one of you. I'm just kidding.
I have a hard time. Ever saying a bad thing about Dan, because I love him so much.
Go ahead, Field.
Joe Burrow and the Bengals are doing something, and this is not new. They played last year in the preseason as well. That was a change from where they had been in prior years. What I would say about this, though, is the fact that they're doing it again only further underscores it. I think this organization, they wouldn't say it out loud, they know this is a pressure year.
Yeah.
Think about some of the things that have been different, un-Bengal-like this year, right? The team restructured the contract of Joe Burrow to create money to go out and acquire other players. They dipped heavily into free agency. Boye Mafe and Brian Cook, all kinds of additions on both sides of the ball, but mostly defense. They traded the 10th overall pick for Dexter Lawrence, who's coming off of a down season. Now, they think he has been amazing in training camp and is going to be the same player that we saw in 2023 and 2024. I think Cincinnati, even if they haven't told us out loud, has acknowledged they know 2026 matters gigantically. Like this team that Joe Burrow once said had a window that was as long as his career, understands that in the NFL that may not be the case. Even if your quarterback is one of the 5 best players at his position, you got to continue to replenish the resources around him to have a chance to make a real mark in this conference.
There's one team in the NFL that has more at stake than Cincinnati, and that's the Rams. Cincinnati's all in.
Yeah.
And the future of the team and the organization is at stake this year.
No doubt.
Can say that, right? You know,
I think so, yeah.
It feels that way.
Absolutely. What's at stake for the quarterback? What's at stake for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and that Hall of Fame duo? What's at stake for their head coach, Zach Taylor?
Yeah.
If they don't get – great quarterbacks don't go 4 years in this league without going to the playoffs.
Right.
And everything remains the same. I'll be interested to see – because this offense has had so much success doing it this shotgunny catch and throw way.
Yep.
But if you go back to that Super Bowl year, it wasn't this drastic change, almost like the Rams last year. But Joe Burrow, way more under center. If you paid attention to the show for 2 years, you know we've been about that for 2 seasons. Middle of the pack. Threw the ball to the tight ends because of that, way more. Ever since then, look at that bottom line. He has been in the gun just about as much as anybody.
Wow.
And I think that not only does that affect, obviously, the ability to be diverse on offense, to be complete on offense, it does affect his ability to stay healthy. It does, because he's being exposed so much. It affects their offensive line to be good enough. And so I'm not saying that they have to go complete 180. And I think they started to a little bit last year, implement some of the stuff that we've talked about. But I think it's got to become a little bit more of a calling card of their from an offensive scheme standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, you remember this. You'll remember this. Burrow was the only quarterback to complete 70% of his passes in 2021. I mean, that's how dialed in he was.
Yeah,
that's what you're talking about.
And he does love to play spread out. He loved it at LSU. He's loved it in the NFL because he can see, and obviously the matchups they have on the perimeter. But I don't know if that's the best thing. The best thing for winning and playing good, complementary, complete offense right now in Cincinnati.
And staying upright, right? The LSU offensive line, it was 5 guys that went to the NFL, and then the wide receivers were just basically the NFL All-Pro team. Right? I mean, that's just Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson.
Yes.
That's a good point.
So I think they've got to deviate a little bit.
By the way, it looked like I was picking up these papers to like smack you or something. I was really just looking for the trash can because I'm junking up the whole.
We have one?
No,
I got one
I can throw my own trash away.
Of course,
I just wanted
Laura,
to clear it up.
Of course, I've got you.
Yeah, throw my trash away, Dan. All right, coming up next, Dan ranked the top 10 quarterbacks in 7 categories. He's going to reveal his list for best ball placement after the break. Dan, you've been trending on Twitter.